Thanks, board members. Let's move on to agenda item 13. This is the 2026 general legislative session preparation. 13.1 is our requests for statutory changes. We're going to have Elise tee us up here. And as a reminder, in the queue from last meeting, we had member Kelly, then member Carey, and I've got member Bollinger. So just some setup here. So Deputy Superintendent Newey.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to first ground us on where we are in the process because I just want to make sure that's super clear for you all so that you all are able to make the decisions that you want to make today with the full information. So we are in the legislative preparation phase. There are 3 different things that we're doing at this time. One is your funding requests. Those are anything where we have to go to the Public Education Appropriations Committee and ask for additional funds or ask for funds, period. Then there are statutory requests. These are things that are just changes in code. So that it doesn't have an appropriation along with it. It is just changing language in laws that already exist or adding new language to the law. And then third is feedback on legislator drafts. Today we are working on the first 2. So for statutory requests, the process looks like board members, so you all come up with ideas for things that you would like to change in law, but staff also submit some. Oftentimes there are just errors in code or things that have changed that have not been updated that we bring to your attention and would love your support on as well. So we bring those all out. Those are in your backup and I can share those again. Then today you all will vote to approve or deny those if you want us to bring them forward to legislators to work on. After that, then the policy team begins to work with legislators. If you have someone in mind that you would love us to work with, we can do that. Otherwise, we reach out to those who make a good fit, and then we'll work with them, and then that will go into the 2026 session starting in January. So just to kind of go over a couple of quick ones that are in backup. These are all the ones that staff have requested. Some of these, again, are just errors. I will bring up, for example, the reintegration plan. There is 2 different spots in code that refer to reintegration plans, and they are in conflict. So we are out of compliance regardless of what we do. So we would love to fix that. The early learning plans, those are no longer required in other areas of code, so we would love to make that clear. The addition of an interstate school psychologist compact would be a new thing in law that we would be adding. The pupil transportation calculation clarification. Pupil transportation is actually calculated based on mileage, but in code it refers to by student. So again, we're kind of out of compliance regardless of what we do because that's just not how it works. We'd love to get that changed. School discipline amendments. This is the one about students in seclusion rooms, and we would love, we've been reached out to by Senator Escamilla to get feedback on this, and we'd love to continue to do that with your blessing. School-based mental health, there are several ambiguities in law that we would love to see fixed. The suicide prevention program, there is a funding gap, and so we would like to make sure that we are able to fulfill our requirements in law. And right now, the funding isn't always there for us to fulfill our requirement to distribute funds to LEAs. So if we could just make a couple changes in law, that would be great. And then the last 2 are for the school land trust. So there's a charter trust land council membership. This would just allow charter schools to work with their board as their charter council for the first year and still get their funding. And then the second changes a few of the community council requirements to just clarify them and streamline them. So these are ones that are coming from staff. At this point, I can open up the motions doc and make motions for those that you would like. And then if you'd like to support any of these as well, that would be acceptable. So thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Let's let's start where we left off last time, and we'll go from there. So we're gonna turn the mic over first to Member Carey, or Kelly. My apologies, Member Kelly, and then Member Carey.
There we go. Yeah, I move that the USBE work with the state legislature to ensure that money currently allocated for our title programs continue to serve the students they are intended to, and encourage the Utah State Legislature to create a revenue neutral plan to ensure that Utah citizens are not being shortchanged with federal education dollars being sent to the states.
The motion before the board, it's just been stated. It's on our screen. Do we have a second? We have a second. Member Kelly, you want to speak to that?
No, yeah, I mean, part of the letter originally that we had, was included in that letter. We did take it out of the letter, but we want to just ensure and make sure that if we are working towards state autonomy, that we make sure that those title programs continue, and that those title programs continue to be funded, and that our state legislators understand the importance of meeting the needs of those students.
Okay. Seeing no other lights, let's get ready for a vote here. The motion is that the USBE will work with the state legislature to ensure that money currently allocated for our title programs continue to serve the students they are intended to, and encourage the Utah State Legislature to create a revenue neutral plan to ensure that Utah citizens are not being shortchanged with federal education dollars being sent to states. Member Boggess.
I know you don't like reading stuff over and over again. Go ahead. Every time you read it, Coach, we got problems. Do we want to encourage them, or do we want to direct our staff to work with the legislature to create a revenue neutral plan?
Who's that question to? Is that to the maker of the motion?
I believe maybe it's to the maker of the motion. It seems to me it would read more legitimately if we direct our staff to work with the legislator to create a revenue neutral plan.
I've been told there's no such thing as a friendly amendment, so.
There is not. There is absolutely no such thing as a friendly amendment.
But I mean, But I would be open to an amendment and with that language change.
What's the language change? Just to change legislature to legislator?
No, so after the word "and," so the third line down, the motion would be to amend this by, after the word "and," direct staff to work with a legislator, and strike encourage the Utah State Legislature. You're gonna make my brain work hard. Yeah, it would be to strike that, and then to direct staff to work with a legislator would go in its place.
So the motion to amend is to strike encourage the Utah State Legislature, and to replace with to direct staff to work with the with a legislator. Let's fix that. Is there, I'm just going to ask, is there any objection to this amendment? Not seeing any. Let's consider that taken care of. So the motion then reads that the USBE will work with the state legislature to ensure that money currently allocated for our title programs continue to serve the students they are intended to, and to direct staff to work with a legislator to create a revenue neutral plan to ensure that Utah citizens are not being shortchanged with federal education dollars being sent to states. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Passes unanimously with one absent. Now we're going to move on to Member Carey. If you are, so you were queued up from last time. I don't know if it's already been resolved. Okay. Well, we're just doing one at a time to get people through. So let me get it. There you go.
I believe it's queued up, and my motion goes to up until 2024, the state had a fund for driver education programs. Those funds were dedicated solely to driver's education. I have to make a motion, I guess. Yeah. And I'll speak to it. Apologies. My motion would be that the USBE work with the Utah State Legislature to remove language permitting the use of driver education funds for 1, pupil transportation, and 2, other expenditures related to public education as the legislature designates in 53F-7-201. And then if I could speak to that.
It's been stated. We have a second. Go ahead.
Thank you. So up until 2024, these driver education funds were dedicated solely for driver's education. In 2024, the legislature said, well, yes, you can use it for driver's education, but we're also going to allow these funds to be used for pupil transportation and other expenditures related to public education, which is a pretty broad category. Because of that, there's not enough funding now to provide for waivers, so students who cannot afford to take their driver's test, afford the training that they need, typically a fee waiver reimbursement would be issued. Now, because of lack of funding, in my district alone, the impact has been pretty substantial. The other impact has been to equipment. The funds aren't there to purchase, in some cases, even the safety equipment necessary to operate the vehicle to train the students. So this is just a legislative change. We're not asking for a rededication of funding, but rather just asking the legislature to please recognize that students do truly rely on these funds to get their driver's license and move on. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So the motion then, not sure why it's not pulling up on this screen, but the motion is that the USBE work with the Utah State Legislature to remove language permitting the use of driver education funds for 1, for pupil transportation, and 2, other expenditures related to public education as the legislature designates in 53F-7-201. Let's vote. That passes unanimously with one absent. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger next.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few, but I'll start with one. Elise, is this the one that we're, let's do the repeal ones first. We have them ready. We just got to get them queued in. I'm wondering, Deputy Superintendent Nui, if we want to just combine the two. Let's do that just to save us some time if we want to. So I would make a motion that the board direct the superintendent to work with the legislature to repeal the early learning plan and requirements for mathematics plan.
Is that your motion on the screen, Member Vice Chair Bollinger?
Yeah, maybe we need to put, do we need to put in code at the very end? Okay, this works. Yep, so my motion is that the board direct the superintendent to work with the legislature to repeal the early learning plan requirements and the requirements for the mathematics plan in code, and I'll speak to that.
Do we
with
have a second? There's a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So both of these plans have been required by LEAs. They used to be tied to funding. They've cut the funding completely, but they still require districts to do these plans, which means that it adds administrative costs, it adds staff time. They even have to take these plans to the local LEA boards and take up board time to just tell them what the plan is happening. It doesn't even mean that they have to approve the plans. And I just think that when we talk about trying to minimize unfunded mandates, so we can make sure that our teachers and educators are focused on student learning, that this would be an appropriate request, as staff has mentioned in our request form. So I would just ask that you support the repeal of these.
Okay, so the motion then is that the board directs the superintendent to work, and by superintendent, I'm assuming she can direct. Okay. It doesn't have to be Molly and nobody else. Okay, good. Just clarity. The motion is that the board directs the superintendent to work with the legislature to repeal the early learning plan requirements and the requirements for the mathematics plan in code. Let's vote. That passes unanimously with 2 absent, Member Davis and Member Brenton. Next in the queue, we have Member Boggess.
Sorry. I move that the board request staff to work with the legislature to amend subsection 53G-6-8039 subsection A to add the following language. 4 is a computer adaptive assessment, or 5 is an assessment that an LEA or school administrator or school administers in lieu of an assessment described in subsections 1 through 4.
The motion has been stated. It is on the screen. Do we have a second? There's a second. Member Boggess?
So this code is the code that allows parents to opt out of assessments. And it would add the computer adaptive assessment. That's one thing that our parents are screaming about all the time. They would be able to opt out of those, and then an assessment that is administered in lieu of an assessment that is identified in 1 through 4. They could also opt out of those. So I think that makes sense. We're just honoring our parental rights and getting that to the finish line.
Member Earl?
The state test has adaptive qualities to it, although it's not fully adaptive, but I'm trying to understand who is doing a computer adaptive assessment. What districts are doing that? It's pretty expensive to do that, and I'm just wondering, where is that taking place?
Is that to the maker of the motion, or?
Yeah, because I'm trying to understand the extent of it.
Sure.
So,
would you like to respond, Member Boggess? Okay.
Anybody engaged with the NWEA or the MAPS assessment is doing a computer adaptive assessment, and that is all over this state.
okay.
Member Earl, does that answer your question?
Um,
Ish? Okay.
yeah, sure.
Vice Chair Wood?
So I have some concerns with this just from follow-up with some charter schools who do use the MAP, because they have a high opt-out rate on RISE, but they use MAP to determine where their students are, placement of their students. what do you recommend that they use? If that's what they're using because of RISE not being useful to them, we create another problem for these schools because we want to hold them accountable, but we don't require parents to help them hold the schools accountable.
Member Bogus.
Thank you. So I don't think it's our job to help them in the capacity in which you said. I think that teachers are skilled individuals and they can do pre-assessments and even post-assessments that help place kids. And they don't have to do it through a computer adaptive assessment. And I think that the message we want to send to all of our LEAs in our institutions is that when parents say no, they mean it. And we shouldn't keep coming up with third and fourth level things to override the initial no. I think that's where we need to be. There's no reason a teacher can't place a child with a paper test. Absolutely no reason. And so when a parent opts out, then this needs to be in place.
Okay, the motion before the board then is that the board requests staff to work with the legislature to amend subsection 53G-6-803 paren 9 paren A to add the following language. Roman numeral 4 is a computer adaptive assessment, or Roman numeral 5 is an assessment that an LEA or school administers in lieu of an assessment described in subsections Roman numeral I through Roman numeral 4. Member Lear.
A question, I think, to the maker of the motion, but it also might be to one of the staff members who's very familiar with assessments. I'm wondering if, and I think I had the same question last year, I'm feeling a little deja vu, but I'm wondering if an assessment on Roman numeral small 5, above that, yeah, is an assessment that an LEA or school administrator administers in lieu of an assessment described in subsections 1 through 4, which we can't see. But I'm wondering if that could be read to say that school that teachers can't use their own assessments that might have an overlap with the standardized tests. I hope I don't know if I was clear. Did that make sense to you, Christina?
Member Bogus.
It does make sense. And when this code or this language was drafted by Superintendent Stallings when she was here, and we covered that issue. And so my answer is no, based on her feedback.
And
Oh, you have a follow-up, Member Lear,
I
sorry.
just wonder if you remember why it's a problem. I don't want to keep teachers from appropriately evaluating their students.
So it has to do with the code lines above. It does not prohibit the evaluation of students. It is in particular,
In lieu of an assessment described in subsections 1 through 4,
Yeah.
which aren't there, but let's see what that says. Is it this 1 through 4? Thank you. There's 1 through 3. Shall excuse you taking an assessment that's federally mandated by the state or requires the use of or software. Was it supposed to be just 1 through 3?
Yeah, help me understand.
There's 2 added, actually.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So it would be 1 through 4 if it passes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
So it doesn't prevent that.
okay.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do value parents being able to have choice. However, when I look at this, I start to ask myself, as we look at what our goals are that we've passed and our priorities, we have a goal to elevate student learning. We have a goal to promote educator quality and effectiveness. And it is helpful to be able to have an educator be able to get immediate feedback to then adapt instruction for students. And then it's this piece of, on our priority, ensure assessment systems will evaluate content knowledge to inform instruction and provide parents with personalized feedback that supports them in their primary responsibility for the education of their children. And I do think that computer adaptive assessments can help provide that support in teachers being effective and efficient in providing instruction for students. And I worry about us taking away any option for teachers to be able to provide assessments other than having to be only do paper pencil, just the amount of work that's happening. If we're really talking about elevating education in the state of Utah and elevate student learning, I want our teachers to be able to have the feedback that they can give to parents and to students to make sure that they're addressing student learning in the moment. So the way that this is written, I would be opposed to this. Thank you.
Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. So the way it's written, it doesn't take away the teacher's opportunity to do it. It reinforces the parent's right to say no, which are two different things. It doesn't say they can't issue them. It says that a parent has the right to opt out. And so I think those are two completely different things.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board requests staff work with the legislature to amend subsection 53G-6-803 paren 9 paren A to add the following language. Roman numeral 4 is a computer adaptive assessment, or Roman numeral 5 is an assessment that an LEA or school administrators administers in lieu of an assessment described in subsections Roman numeral 1 through Roman numeral 4. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, that motion passes, 8 in favor, 6 opposed. Those opposed being Member Lear, Member Reel, Member Booth, Member Wood, Member Bollinger, and Member Hymas. Okay. If you don't mind, I have a motion, but I can't chair it.
Oh, sure.
I don't
All
make
right.
very many motions, but
All right, let's let you make a motion.
Thank you.
Chair
Thank you.
Hymas.
Just in response, and hopefully this isn't out of order, and correct me if it is, but I'd like to move that the board approve the staff legislative requests. And if there's a second, I'll speak to it. If not, we'll move on.
I don't know if you need my thing. Two of those have already been moved, and I would move to divide it. Yeah, I would move to divide all of them.
Did we have a second to Chair Hymas's motion? We need to have a second before we divide.
There was a second, Sarah.
There, second, okay, so you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I would move to divide them.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, how would you like to,
Every single one all by itself.
doesn't that just negate what you just did?
It sure does, yeah, and that's fine. If that's the will of the board, then that's fine.
Okay, so let's make sure we get the motion written correctly. So if I'm understanding correctly, if we pass this to divide, then it basically just negates to approve all of them, and then we go back to doing them individually. Is that your intent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Let's,
How many more are there?
How many more on that list? Elise, off the top of your head, how many were on that list you shared with us? 8 more? 7 or 8 more?
okay, so let's go ahead and, oh, Member Earl, did you have a comment? Okay. Member Kelly?
I guess my question is to Chair Hymas. Those are the ones that were requested in the presentation made by Superintendent Deputy Newey, right? And not the others that are listed here. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so there
Okay.
have been, just for some clarity and a little bit of context,
Okay.
there have been some motions that have been made that were from this staff list. I recognize that. We've already moved 3 of them forward. I also recognize that these staff requests are not meant to be charged in any way. They're simply either seeking clarity or removing unfunded, like Amanda's, right? Like, why do we have this plan? It's not funded. It's costing time and money. So I, after hearing this presentation from Deputy Superintendent Newey and listening to, understanding what staff is trying to do here, rather than going through these one at a time, I figure it would be in the board's best interest to say, yeah, they're doing our work. Let's just move these through so that we can move forward with these.
Member Kelly, did you have a follow-up? Okay. Member Bogus?
So through you, Vice Chair Ballinger, if it pleases the board, I would rather treat it like a consent agenda and just remove one. I would be happy to do that if that would please the
Okay,
body.
so the motion is already to the board, so if you want to amend your motion,
So I would move to divide out the Interstate School Psychologist Compact.
let's make sure your motion's written correctly. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, the motion's to divide out the Interstate School Psychologist Compact. Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Okay, would you like to speak to that motion?
Well, it would be a different motion. Do you want me to do that now?
Would you like to speak to this motion that you just made to divide out? Okay. All right. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and cue up the vote. Just to divide out this Interstate Psychology Compact. All right, that motion passes 12-2 with our no votes being Member Lear and Member Reel. So with that, we will go back to the underlying motion.
Yeah, thank you. I'll jump in. I know we have 2 things going on here, so I'll jump in on mine, if that's okay, Member Bogus, and then we'll go over to you for well, nothing, I guess. It's just been pulled from mine. So speaking to the underlying amended motion now is that the board approve, and I would say staff recommended legislative changes, removal of, this is a clunky motion, but removal of what was just pulled, and the 3 that were already approved. So we're not redoing things, but however that needs to be worded, I know, and I usually, remainder of the legislative requests.
Okay, so
Let's make sure that gets,
yeah, let's
if
make sure
that's
that
okay.
it's worded correctly.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, so let me state my motion and then I move that the board approve the remainder of the staff created legislative requests except for the Interstate School Psychologist Compact request.
Okay. And we've had a second. Member Earl?
So my understanding is if we have others that we would not be voting for, that would limit our ability to vote for the whole group, we would pull that too. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Or
'cause
we would just not vote for it because there's pieces here that I
correct.
just don't like.
That's
So,
correct.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no other lights, let's go ahead and cue this up for a vote.
Okay.
Okay, that motion passes 8-6, with the no votes being Member Green, Member Carey, Member Hall, Member Earl, Member Kelly, and Member Bogus. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to reconsider. Okay, with a second. Would you like to speak to that motion? Okay. Okay, so we'll bring up a vote. The motion is to reconsider. We're rapid fire today. Okay, so let's go ahead and vote.
Randy? Oh, he's got it.
Okay, that motion passed to reconsider passes 8-6, with the no votes being Member Lear, Member Reel, Member Booth, Vice Chair Wood, Vice Chair Bollinger, and Chair Hymas. So we will go back to reconsider the last motion. Okay, so so the motion back on the table, can we go back? We're not quite ready to vote. If we can just go back to the motion. So the motion back on the table is that the board approve the remainder of the staff-created legislative requests except for the interstate school psychologist compact request. Member Earl?
Yeah, there's 2 items I want to pull that I'm just not sure that I would vote for me this time. I need some additional information, and I reached out to some other people on it, so I'm not ready to vote for those. I would pull the school-based mental health, and I would pull the air quality guidelines. I want to know more about that in depth before I ask our staff to do some work that, and I spoke to it, so you're welcome.
Let's make sure that we have the motion, and we'll see if we can get a second, and then we'll see if you need to
We'll
speak
see if
more.
we can get a second.
Okay, we have a second. Let's make sure we have the motion. So the motion's to divide out the school-based mental health and the air quality guidelines requests. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that has been seconded, and I'm seeing no lights. Let's go ahead and vote. Sounds like we might need to have a snack here soon. We are low on carbs. Okay, it looks like that motion passes 10-4, the no votes being Member Lear, Member Reel, Member Booth, and Vice Chair Bollinger. So let's go back to the underlying motion. So it looks like if we pull the ones that are left over are the reintegration planning, the pupil transportation, the school discipline amendments, and the suicide prevention planning. Is that correct?
Are we down to 3? Yeah, hold on, Member Carey. Elise, will you let us know what is potentially still on the table, if you've been tracking?
So the reintegration plan, the pupil transportation calculation, the school discipline amendments, the suicide prevention program, and the 2 school land trusts, the Charter Trust Land Council and the School Community Council's requirements.
I just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're voting on. Member Carey?
I just have a point of information on the reintegration planning. If it's my understanding that there was a conflict in code, and I would just like to know what that conflict is before I make a decision on whether or not to pull this or to request it being pulled or not.
Okay, do we have staff that can address that? Deputy Superintendent Nui?
If there's more staff, they can come up and help. But in one area of the code, it says that districts have the responsibility of reintegration plan. In another area of code, it says LEAs, and districts would exempt out charter schools, whereas LEAs include all charter schools. So we would like it to be all LEAs so that it covers everybody equally.
Does that satisfy your question? Okay. All right, seeing no other lights, let's go ahead and cue this up to vote. And that passes unanimously. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Chair Hymas.
It happens. Thank you. Board members, can we move on to legislative funding requests? We need to stay here for a little bit. How many more motions are we looking at? And you've got one. Member Bogus has at least one. Okay. Well, we'll keep going, but we do need to move on. We've got other requests as well. So we've got Member Bogus, and then we've got Vice Chair Bollinger. Go ahead, Member Bogus.
So, I apologize, Superintendent Nui. Can we pull up the ones with regard to licensure? Yes. I move that the board direct staff to amend the appropriate code lines to ensure that all CTE teachers would have a license, and that we would direct them to direct staff to, I think you understand what I mean, amend the appropriate code lines to ensure that leadership in charter schools are required to obtain a license.
Is that stated correctly? I know you said, I think you know what it means. Is this stated correctly if I were to reread this?
Well, to be honest, at this time of day, I get blurry vision, so I tried to read
Well,
it.
let me read it then, and then
Okay.
you tell me if it needs to be changed. Is that okay? So the motion that's being proposed is that the board directs staff to amend appropriate code lines to ensure that all CTE teachers have a license. That the board directs staff to amend appropriate code lines to ensure that leadership in charter schools is required to obtain a license.
So I think to work with a legislator to amend, I think is what is missing from both of those.
And where would you want that?
To direct staff to work
Inserted.
with a legislator
That the board directs staff to work with the legislator
to amend, yes.
on both the top and bottom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to this motion? Go ahead. There's a second. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, I think as we continue to talk about school safety, one of the things that we face all the time is these individuals in our schools, and they don't have a license, and then if they leave, they hop around, they go all over the place. And this would create a space where we're accountable, but that we also have people who've been properly background checked. They have been vetted through the systems and the parameters and the standards that have been set by this board. And I think it's important that we continue to raise the bar in those areas so that we are, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, clear and consistent as we address our LEAs both now and into the future.
Member Green, go ahead.
This may be to the maker of the motion and anybody, staff maybe. What does that look like then? I guess if you could help me understand how CTE teachers are in this space now and how that affects them if that were to go into place? Like what's that in between space where they don't have a license, a CTE doesn't have a license, and you're wanting them to have a license? Does that make sense? Probably a bad question. I want to know what the impact of this is against what is in place now.
So by and large, if you're in a traditional LEA, your CTE teachers probably do have a license. But a bill passed in the last legislative session allowing individuals to teach CTE courses without a license, and that's deeply problematic. And so, like, for example, in your children's high school, you would probably see little to no change. But in other spaces, we can't hold people accountable. We can't prevent them hopping from building to building after doing nefarious things if they don't have a license. And it also creates a space where they have to meet the minimum standards set by this board, including sometimes pedagogical standards and other things. So in the space that I believe you might be referencing, I don't believe you'd see any change at all. But in other spaces, it would definitely raise the bar significantly. Charters are always welcome to get an LEA specific license for their leadership, but right now that's not required in code, and I think it needs to be required in code so that we can do our due diligence with regard to oversight.
Got Vice Chair Bollinger, and then Member Brenton and Member Longacre.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I guess this is my question. I think we're talking about our catalyst and our bill, but I believe, and maybe staff, I'm not sure who the best person to direct this to, Chair, so just staff maybe, but just curious. I thought that the purpose of the Catalyst Center was to help expand the ability for those in that work in the field to be able to then pass on their trades to increase opportunities for our students to learn directly from the experts. So I guess my question would be, how would that impact this Catalyst Center, the ability for this to move forward? Elise?
Thank you. Yeah, so this was from HB 447. That was the Catalyst Center bill from 2025. And so that put into effect these lines. You'll see at 229, an individual with industry experience as an LEA determines may work as an educator without being licensed under this title. And there was, I cannot speak for the bill drafter or the bill sponsor, but that was my understanding, is that it would allow for those who are involved in industry and working in one of these centers or in a CTE setting, I believe, if they meet these criteria. So there is an A through C. They still have to pass a criminal background check, demonstrate their expertise, and complete any training required by the LEA that is employing them. If they do so, they can work without a license. So.
Member Brenton.
I appreciate the thought behind that, but I would speak against this motion. I think it goes completely against the catalyst legislation and the intention that we get experts in the field in our schools with CTE and charters, and this just goes backwards. I think, like I said, the LEAs can have guidelines in place. We have the background checks, but I think this would not be good.
Member Longacre.
I will echo what Board Member Brenton said. I met with a couple of local board members, and they said that it is imperative that we try to make it as easy as possible for people that could come in and teach these CTE classes that have the knowledge, and we need to make it easier and not have them jump through hoops to teach these classes.
Before we go back to Member Bogus, I will say as well, this is not like it's a free ride for teachers just to come in. They still have to go through background checks. They still have to go through trainings. They still are watched by the LEA. So this is not just hey, you're a master mechanic, welcome aboard, right? There's still checks and balances in there. So Member Bogus.
So I would just offer that I think it's ironic that we talk about raising the bar and this has inherently lowered the bar. this bill. To get a CTE license is not difficult. And when I say not difficult, if you are genuinely an expert in the field, it's like 2 clicks of a button to get that. You do your USIMS thing, you submit your stuff, and if you are genuinely an expert, it is not hard. This is not a barrier to entry. It allows us to have the oversight that we need to have, and it puts all of our teachers on a level playing field. So when it comes to accountability, we are in the same space for every educator. And I think that when it comes to leadership, an LEA specific license is not difficult to obtain in any way, shape, or form. And so I think just making sure that we're going to treat all of the individuals who are issuing instruction to our individuals in our schools should be important. Like getting a license means you have to pass the ethics test. Getting a license means you have to do certain training every year. You have to, there's things that are in place with a license. And I think that we need to make certain that if they're delivering instruction in our schools, that it that it's everybody. So I think this it raises the bar. It puts us in a place where we're good and consistent across all of our systems of education. So thank you.
Member Green?
So, just so I understand better, is a licensed teacher held to a different standard than a CTE teacher? As far as if something were to happen, that they would need to be investigated or something goes awry. Is there a different standard currently?
Who's that directed to?
We can start with Member Bogus and then
Sure, Member Bogus.
work out from there.
So the answer to your question is no. There's no difference between if you have a licensure, an allegation against an educator with a CTE license or with an educator license, that would be handled distinctly the same. Or, well, should I say distinctly? It would be handled the same. The difference is the person without a license is treated very differently should an allegation come forth because they don't hold a license under the USBE. And so the state doesn't have the right to investigate. They can't take their license. They can't prohibit their ability to work inside an institution. They can't put a flag on their file for future employers. But again, to obtain a CTE license, if you are genuinely an expert in the field, it's not hard. It is absolutely not difficult. And to obtain an LEA specific license for a leadership at a charter school is also not difficult. So.
Okay, the motion then is that the board direct staff to work with the legislator to, 1, amend appropriate code lines to ensure that all CTE teachers have a license, and 2, amend appropriate code lines to ensure that leadership in charter schools is required to obtain a license. Let's vote. That motion fails, 11 against, 2 in favor. Those in favor being Member Green and Member Bogus. Board members, I've got Vice Chair Bollinger, and then we are going to move on to, we got to move on. So we're going to go Vice Chair Bollinger, and then we're going to move on to legislative funding requests.
Thank you, Chair, and hopefully this will be quick. So I do have one more motion that I would like to make, that the board direct superintendent to work with the legislature to amend the funding formula for the Students with Disabilities WPU distribution. And with a second, I would like to speak to that.
So the motion is before you on the screen. It's been stated. Do we have a second? We have a second by Member Booth. Go ahead, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you. I've had several individuals from LEAs reach out concerned about funding. You know, when we hear people that are, when they say they're underfunded for special education students, what that means is that the WPU distribution for a student with a disability, for example, somebody that's considered a self-contained student, so they have 180 minutes of service, receives 2 WPU. So that's, you know, roughly just over $8,000. But that would include a student that's in a resource classroom that might get help with reading, writing, and math. That would also include somebody that goes to a special school that might cost $46,000 to educate, or a student in a special class that's twice that amount. So what's happened is a lot of districts are left covering the unfunded portion of that. And I don't want to direct what it should specifically be, but I do think it needs to be revisited to make sure that we're getting the funding to the schools to provide the services for those students. And if you look at how USDB is funded, that's differently than these other students, but they might be in a special school that receive as intensive services as the others. And the intensive services grant does not provide, I mean, one district applied for it and maybe got the cost of 3 students when they have hundreds and hundreds of students. So I would just encourage us to have those conversations to make sure that those students with disabilities are getting the services they need. Thank you.
Vice Chair Bollinger, are you, if I'm understanding correctly, you're looking to put a multiplier on students with disabilities? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so it would be to be able to maybe, and I don't know, I don't want to say exactly what that should be, if it's like they get 3 WPU, but it needs to be more than the 2 WPU, because the cost of educating those students is so high compared to those that are receiving just 180 minutes of resource services. So there needs to be some equalization in that.
And if I can follow up before we move on to Member Carey, where would if we adjust it and say now we go to 3, where does that money come from? Is it going somewhere else? And then so I don't take up a lot of time, I'll ask you a small handful of questions, or maybe just one more. So where does that money come from if we're going to create a multiplier? In order to keep the balance at 1, right, your 0.3 or whatever has to balance out. And then 2, is there incentive then to say, man, I'm going to become an IEP school, or my child find now just skyrocketed, right, amongst families. So help me with some clarity.
And I do think I've had conversations where we've already seen that with just the self-contained delineation, those that are getting 180 minutes. We're already seeing districts, to your point, they get to the 180 minutes exactly just to try to get more funding. And that's, again, that needs to be revisited to see maybe they don't get as much of the WPU. Maybe it's not a 2.0 for those students that are at a regular school compared to those that are at a special school or in a special class. As far as where the funding comes from, that's why we want our staff to work with legislators, because I don't have the answer to that after our economic report.
Member Carey.
Chair, mine was also along the same lines that you were asking, and this is more, I guess, technical, but I love the idea. I'll support the motion, but just for future reference, this is also, I guess I'm wondering why I'm bringing this up, because we are on the fiscal list now, right? We're on the request for money. Oh, okay. So my question is it appropriate to be on this list, because this really is a request for funding, even though it doesn't come with a dollar sign? So I support this, but just for future reference, can I better understand what that demarcation looks like?
I'll answer, even though this is not my motion. From what I'm seeing, this is a request to relook at the multiplier. So the fund in code, right? So the funding is a natural consequence of it, but this is to. Yeah.
So maybe to clarify, I just need to add in code, maybe that would help clarify, because this is what I'm seeking and it may impact obviously funding piece, but it is a code change.
And that helps me understand. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Member Bogus.
Oh, I need to talk after this.
Okay, so the motion then is that the board direct superintendent to work with the legislature to amend the WPU funding formula and distribution for students with disabilities in code. Let's vote.
Chair Hymas, I'm online and I'm a yes.
Thank you, Member Davis. Okay, that motion passes. 14 in favor, 1 opposed. That opposition coming from Matt Hymas. There you go. Put it on the record. I'm not a monster. We can talk about that later. Yes, Member Bogus.
Requests that were suspended into this time frame from earlier in the day. And I think that it's only appropriate that we deal with both of those now.
If I'm honest, I'm not sure which requests were suspended from today that would be brought up with the legislative request. Can you spark my memory?
The one would be the one about the 604 code, and the other one is about the special education stipends for educators.
You're referring to the ones that were pulled from the group, or is that something different? Let me understand here.
No, so it was basically that it's not an appropriate time to make the motion. We'll make it during the legislative request time. So when we came back from lunch, the solution to the stipends was that we would make a legislative request. That's what we worked on over lunch. From the rule, yeah. We didn't vote on it. It just was not an appropriate time to make the motion.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. Member Bogus, it is 6 o'clock or approaching 6 o'clock. We've got some snacks and we want to give board members, let's say 15 minutes. Is that too long? Okay, 15 minutes and then let's chat during that time and
Okay.
we'll get things situated. Thank you. Sybil, where are those? Just in the hallway? Okay, admin conference room. Thank you. 15 minutes. Let's jump back in. So if you recall, before we broke for 15 minutes, there was a question on a couple of additional requests for legislative action. Just to help you understand, because I wasn't privy to the conversation, but I've been caught up. There was a conversation that happened at lunch that Member Bogus had mentioned. She was informed that she could bring those up during this agenda item. And so to honor that conversation, we're going to go back to those two. I know we have 3 on the screen here, but we're going to have to just take care of those 2 that were discussed previously. And then we will move on to the legislative portion, which is agenda item 13.2. So with that, Member Bogus, if you want to begin.
So hopefully this will be spoken fast. I move that the board direct staff to work with the legislature to repeal subsection 53E-6-604, subsection 6. And if Director Rasmussen's here, he can perhaps answer any questions.
Let's see if there's a second. The motion before the board is that the board direct staff to work with the legislature to repeal subsection 53E-6-604, section 6. Is there a second? Okay, back to you, Member Bogus.
Thank you. So if you look at this code, this is the code that requires LEAs send all of their, go ahead and scroll down all the way down, please. Thank you, whoever's running that. I don't know who it is. It's right there. It says that the state board shall make rules that require an LEA to notify the state board, UPAC, and your head is in the way, and an educator of a complaint from a parent against an educator alleging. So this used to just be in board rule. And I know everybody thinks that I came up with this concocted idea. I did not. It's actually codified. So we can just put that on the public record. The legislature did this. I did not do this. And I think to address those concerns, I think this is something the board can handle. I think if we talk about the bloating of UPAC and all of the things that are associated with that, I think we can handle that at the board level. But as long as this remains in code, we are not going to be able to do the work at the board level that we need to do. And so I would just move that we ask the legislature to repeal just number 6.
Okay, so the motion before us is that the board directs staff to work with the legislature,
With a legislator.
with a legislator, to repeal subsection 53E-6-604, section 6. We have a question by Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't know if Director Rasmussen is here. Okay, so I would like clarification. From my understanding, I would just want to make sure I understand the impact of this. From my understanding, this is where every complaint from a parent has to go to UPAC currently, which has increased the number of things coming to UPAC, even if there's findings or not. So it's added a lot of work, but not as many findings. And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly.
All right, Director Rasmussen, Member Bollinger, Vice Chair Bollinger, will you repeat the question and then that will give him time to process?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so Director Rasmussen, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what this request would do. So from my understanding that what this code has done has increased the number of complaints coming to UPAC, even though there might not be as many findings because it's every little incident that's happening. So if we were to request this, that would help solve that issue. Am I understanding that correctly?
Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. Yes, this would allow the board to change the UPAC rules back to the way it was before, where we don't have these parent complaints coming in.
Member Earl?
So I just have it. So we're wanting to not have the parent complaints come to UPAC. UPAC doesn't act on them unless there's a violation, and then they wait for the response from the district for 30 days. So we don't want those coming in. Am I understanding that correctly? You want just districts to do their own without that accountability piece?
I believe this is to the maker of the motion, Member
Maybe.
Boggess.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, sure.
So
Member
can we
Boggess,
pull the
go
code
ahead.
lines back up to answer that question, please? So this just codifies what is in board rule, and we can't change our rule, even if we want to keep the accountability piece, which we have every right to do. We can't play with that as long as this code line is written the way it is. And so there should be an accountability piece, but we have the ability to do that in board rule, and that's where it should sit.
And when may I ask a question? I'm just curious, what does the play with it look like? I'm not understanding, because removing this means that we no longer have to have those reported to UPAC. Or they could argue that we'd have to change to align with the law, which is not allowing that to take place anymore. So what is the
So would you
play
like me
with
to
it
answer that?
piece?
Yeah, just to help, in my understanding, Member Boggess, if that's okay, it's still in rule. We're not suggesting that we change it in rule, but this kind of gives the authority to make those decisions back to this board rather than being required by code. Thank you, Member Booth. Is that part of it? Member Boggess, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the accountability piece is still in board rule, but the parameters surrounding that they're very heavy, and we need to raise the bar in this state. But when we raise the bar, we raise the volume and magnitude of what this looks like in reality. And so we have to be able to, even say to our law and licensing committee, hey, we need an accountability piece, get it in there. But I don't believe that this is it, and I don't believe it's going to help us solve our problems long term. This does nothing but just create a deluge of chaos that is often not even dealt with, in my opinion, in what I call a check, like a check on the LEA. If that is our job, is to check the system, this does not provide that the way it's written. So I would just ask that we ask the legislature to repeal it and put that piece back in our hands completely so that we can deal with it appropriately.
You have a follow-up, Member Earl?
I don't know so what are you suggesting the change would be? I'm just curious because that they wouldn't come, because this is just saying you have to report to the board on it, and we create the parameters around that. So I'm still trying to understand the deluge is you don't want, we wouldn't have as many coming to the board. Is that, sorry, maybe I'm still missing it. I do apologize. I'm trying to understand.
Member Bogus, go ahead.
Can we pull the code back up? So as this is written, it requires an LEA to notify the state board. So we have an audit complaint. Then it requires them to notify UPAC, which is a second piece of paperwork. And they have to notify the educator of a complaint from a parent alleging a violation of the educator licensing standards. So first of all, that's 3 pieces of paperwork. We can do all of these in board rule. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. What I'm saying is that we can't even take that part, like, is it required to contact both audit and UPAC, or is it just required to contact UPAC, or is it just required to? We can't change any of 211 as long as this is in place. And so despite what's in the press, this was not some big thing that Christina concocted. This is codified. And in order to address the concerns that are coming from our LEAs and that are coming from our UPAC employees, we need to repeal this from code and put that back in the board's hands. And maybe once the work group in law and licensing comes up with a solution, we can ask them to amend code in the next legislative session. But at this time, this needs to be repealed so we can do our job.
Okay.
Member Lear?
Well, maybe that was completely answered. I guess what I was going to do is give an example to say, instead of saying, as the LEAs are now reading this, I'm not sure they're doing it, but they're reading this to say, to notify the state board, UPAC, and the educator of all complaints, any complaint from a parent against an educator. And it could be qualified to say, and I'm just making this up, and maybe this is too limiting for you, and I don't mean just Jenny, you, but some others, but it could say a legitimate complaint or a substantiated complaint or a screened complaint, so that LEAs were not overwhelmed by the parent who complains, I hate that principal, he eats too much, that sounds silly, but there are LEA attorneys I've talked to who believe that the strict letter of law is any complaint. So it would allow us to then qualify that.
Okay. So the motion then is to get that back on the screen. The motion is that the board directs staff to work with a legislator to repeal subsection 53E-6-604 subsection or section 6. Let's vote. Member Davis?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Member Davis abstains. And that passes 12 in favor with 3 abstentions, those coming from Member Carey, Member Davis, and Member Earl. Okay, back to you, Member Bogus.
Thank you. I move that the board direct staff to work with the legislature to provide a discretion to USBE in distributing the funds associated with 53F-2-310 stipends for special educators for additional days of work.
That motion is before us and has been stated. Do we have a second? We have a second. Member Bogus?
Thanks so much. I don't know that I can distill a 30-minute conversation into this, but I think, I think that we agreed this is some latitude that the board needs in our little mini meeting over lunch. And should the legislature agree, then we can go from there. But I think there needs to be some latitude in how the funding model works and the way it's distributed out, considering that it's a limited funding source.
Member Brenton? Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board directs staff to work with the legislature to provide discretion to USBE in distributing the funds associated with 53F-2-310 stipends for special educators for additional days of work. Let's vote.
I'm a no.
Thank you, Member Davis. That motion passes 8 in favor, 1 abstention, 6 no votes. The abstention coming from Member Carey, the no votes from Member Davis, Member Brinton, and a handful of others.
Did you not eat
Yeah,
your
if you-
carbs during a break?
Member Bollinger, Member Davis, Member Reel, Member Lear, Member Hymas, and Member Brinton. Okay. Thank you. Kelsey wants out. I get it. It's her anniversary. That's right. We're trying to get her out. Okay, board members, I know there's still a lot of work to be done in this area, but we need to move on to agenda item 13.2. This is the legislative funding requests. And I have, who do I have up here? I've got a Member Kelly motion. Do you? Do we have, so I'm gonna ask Vice Chair Bollinger to chair for a second. So I'll make a motion. I don't see any of the lights on, so
Okay, Chair Hymas.
thank you. Board members, I move that, that's, again, I'm rusty at this. Scott, help me out, please. If I need to get the WPU on our list. It's typically a top priority. We somehow overlooked it last month. That's on me as much as anybody. So I'd like to add the WPU increase to the funding requests.
Okay, so the motion is that the board add a WPU increase to the list. Is that
That's good enough for me, yes.
okay? And we have a,
Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
work.
Yes, sir. Just start from there. You could make a motion that says, support the, or just ask for the increase based on the, inflationary amount. Or, an additional, you can start anywhere really, and then decide on what you want to put forward, and we'll do that.
Yeah,
Would
if
you
I
like-
may.
yeah, would you like to
Vice Chair.
speak to that?
Yes, please, thank you. And I think Scott and I are thinking the same thing. I don't necessarily have, I asked the question earlier to our economist about JLC's recommendation. I know from sitting before legislature last year that even the 4% is a lot. And Scott, do we know what's projected for just the standard? What? 200 million, 50 million for 1% increase. And what would that, so is it going to be 4% or is that going to fluctuate?
No, we won't really know for sure.
No, Scott, can you turn
Can
your
you get
mic
your
on,
mic?
please?
Thank you.
We'll get
sir.
it turned on. Hold
Apologies.
on. Will you turn his mic on? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Chair, a 1% increase on the value of the WPU is estimated to be about $50 million. And no, we won't know for sure what the exact amount of the increase. We're estimating as high as 4%. It likely won't be that high. Sam had articulated earlier, it'll probably be close to that. So if you could just plan on that it'll be somewhere between, I would say, 3.5 and 4. Right. And then, that's why he was saying it's about 200 million of ongoing money. If it were 4%, 4 times 50 million is 200 million. So that's ongoing money right now. Just, for context or by way of comparison, Last year, we only received a little over $200 million in ongoing money, just for perspective, not to unduly influence or thing, but just for your consideration. And it's another quote unquote tight year. So.
Did you have a follow-up on that at all?
I just have, and I know we haven't had a lot of discussion in this yet, but I just would like to add in this motion, if it pleases the body, I'm going to put that, I would like to put that the board add a WP increase, WPU, I keep forgetting the U, increase of 1% above the, what is it called, inflationary adjustment. Yeah. And then that's open to discussion or amendments. So that's my motion as I've been able to formulate it.
Okay, so the motion is that the board add a WPU increase of 1% above the inflationary adjustment to the list of funding requests. And we need to have a second on that. A second?
And that's,
Okay.
and I will waive my speaking to it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Member Bogus, were you to speak to this motion? Okay, go ahead.
So, context for my question, Chair Hymas. I get worried that when we put this on here, it's already a high priority for everybody, and it devalues all of our other priorities when we start hammering at the WPU. That's already going to happen, and 1% of the inflationary adjustment is chump change, really. I mean, it's important money for schools, but it's not all that much. And so I'm wondering if this is something we should, it's already important. It's already being discussed. I don't see the purpose in putting it on our funding priority list. Especially like one year, I forget who did it. They wanted to ask like for 13% or something. I'm sure you remember that. That's something that should be on a priority list. If we're just saying, hey, the inflationary adjustment is good, we'll take another 1%. I just don't see the purpose in putting this on our priority list. Could you help me understand that better to finally get to my question?
Chair Hymas.
Yeah, thank you. I think you bring up a valid point because the WPU is always at the top of the list, and we know that it's valued by legislators as well to get at least the inflationary adjustment. The reason that I would prioritize, that I'm seeking prioritization here is, yes, in fact, for that 1%, that is the most flexible spending for LEAs to use as needed, whether it's salary increases or others. So we can see that WPU is not as categorized as some of the other things. So that 1%, although it might seem small, it does get carried over because this is ongoing as well. So it's just like last year. If it were 50 million last year, it would be 50 million plus an additional whatever it was, right? It still goes ongoing. So prioritizing, I think, is important for our.
Yes, it's 50 million.
Yeah.
I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah, 5 million could be considered chump change, not to my house, but
Or
but
to your LEA.
Yeah, or to my LEA, I'll take it. But you can see why prioritizing it, for me anyway, is important.
Okay, looks like we have Member Carey.
A substitute motion, and that substitute motion would be that the board add a request for a WPU increase of 2% above the inflationary adjustment to the list of funding requests.
Okay, so the substitute motion is that the board add a request for a WPU increase of 2% above the inflationary adjustment to the list of funding requests. And we had a second by Member Kelly. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, just as I've met with members in my district, I think we had a public comment today which asked for the 2%. I just think it brings us closer to alignment with some of the other voices in this space, and I think that it better reflects the needs of the LEAs and public education. Thank you.
Okay, Member Booth.
I am really eager to lock arms with and join hands with USSA, USBE, USBO in at least representing to the governor and to the legislature that this is, without any doubt, our top priority. Whatever the percentage is, I think that may be negotiable, but I think it really speaks volumes, even though it is a priority already, and it's going to get probably primary attention from the legislature. But to be able to say to as we make a vote, to be able to say to our folks at the local level, we share your concern. We recognize that you have prioritized this right at the top of your list. We are with you, and we stand together for Utah's kids. So I would really recommend heartily that we give our attention to this motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the motion is that the board add a request for a WPU increase of 2% above the inflationary adjustment to the list of funding requests. And seeing no lights, we'll go ahead and vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Member Davis.
Vice Chair Wood, can we did you want to vote? Yeah. Cindy said yes.
Leanne just said yes, is that true?
Okay, so that motion passes 13 in favor, 1 opposed, that's Member Bogus, and 1 absent, Member Reel. All right, now back to you, Chuck.
Thank you. My apologies. I know when we did 13.1, Elise spoke to us for a second. I'm not calling on you, but Scott, do you need to address us for 13.2? Or are we good to continue forward? Hold on.
Well, we do need to continue to 13.2 so that we know what do you mean move forward with 13.2 or?
Well, we already did go into 13.2. That's where this last
with the
motion
WPU.
Yes.
Right, but now you got to do the ranking so that we know what to submit to the governor.
Okay, and when we did that online, Kelsey, do you want to speak to that?
Elise.
Elise?
Thanks, Chair. Okay, so just an overview of the process, just really quickly. So over the last couple of months, you all have submitted to us your funding request ideas. Some of those have been developed into full funding requests. Then we sent out last week that voting form for you all to rank them. So you had the option of voting, ranking from 1 to 13, or just ranking your top 3 or top 5. We have those results. So what we need right now, because the Education Interim Committee has asked that we present in October your legislative priorities. So they need, and for the governor, we need our list of the top funding priorities. So a couple of things that would be helpful. One is to determine how many requests you want in your list. In the past, we've done 10, top 10 that we've submitted to the legislature and the governor. That was kind of a lot last year. In the end, we ended up cutting some of those. So that is up to you. And then which of those requests end up being in that top priority list. And then we will take those to the governor's office and the legislature. Just to show you the results. So in the green, you'll see their ranking of each of the different funding requests. Number 1, and these were ranked by whether or not people voted for them at all, and then what their number was, what their ranking was, and then put it all together. So number 1 was the paraprofessional K-3 grant program. Number 2 is the K-8 literacy and numeracy funding request. 3, the master pilot program. 4, the UPAC critical FTEs. 5 is pupil transportation. 6, early mathematics benchmark assessment. 7, internal audit critical FTEs. There was a tie for 8 for the compliance and the data and compliance FTEs for superintendency. That means there was no 9. I can count. 10 is the Beverly Taylor Sorensen increase. 11, financial monitoring FTE. 12, first credential FTE. And 13, the Adobe Creative Cloud. So with the WPU, you would have 14 to work with today to narrow down and prioritize. So we have this spreadsheet that includes all of them. As you make changes, let us know where you want them in the rankings. Currently, they are just listed as they came out of your survey. So we have 1, 2, those reflect those survey answers. But if you would like to make motions, please let us know where in the ranking you would like it to go, and we will move it up or down accordingly. If that makes sense.
Okay, first off, I've got Member Lear, and then Vice Chair Bollinger, and then Member Longacre.
And I have a clarifying question. These would be ranked below the WPU, or do we still have to determine where the WPU increase goes?
That would be member, so it just falls into this, probably at number 14. If I can speak openly, Member Bollinger, I believe, is going to make a motion to readjust where the WPU falls.
All right, I just didn't know if we were supposed to consider this below that WPU or where. So that answers my question. Thanks.
Thank you. So we've got Vice Chair Bollinger. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I would make a motion for us to have WPU be the number 1 priority on our funding requests.
So there's a motion, and it's been seconded. The motion is that the board make the WPU request the number 1 in the ranking. I guess that's it, period. There it is. Okay. The motion is that the board make the WPU request number 1 in the ranking. It's been seconded. Back to you, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you. I think that you've already we've all kind of had a discussion about this, but having unrestricted funds allows districts to really meet the individual needs of the students that they are serving in their individual areas, whether they're rural or charters or in the areas. And I just think that that's what our schools really do need, is more flexibility in their funding requests.
Thank you. Member Longacre or Member Booth, are you speaking to this motion, or are you in the queue? In the queue? Okay, let's go ahead and vote then. Member Davis?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. Member Davis is a yes. Okay, that passes 13 in favor, 1 no vote, and 1 absent. The no vote coming from Member Bogus. Next is Member Longacre. Go ahead.
I am just over the moon that the K through 3 paraprofessionals came in first before we made that amendment right there, the motion. And I think nothing will tell teachers, parents, and students that we care about them more than having a paraprofessional in that K through 3 grade. There's been study after study saying that those years are the most important years in a kid's education, and it will help teachers lighten their loads and let them focus more on teaching as what they're doing. Kids will have more individualized groups. Behavior problems can help with the paraprofessional, so I hope that stays at 2, but I just want to say thank you. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Hold on. And and I want to say thank you to staff, especially you, Newly. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Booth.
I am going to speak about something I'm sure you can't imagine what. So many years ago, when I was a kid, we used to do art. We used to do visual arts. We used to do music. We used to do dance. We used to do theater. It was just a part of Paul Elementary School in a little town in southern Idaho, where our claim to fame was sugar beets and sugar beet factory and potatoes. And that was basically it. But I'll tell you, our arts program was so strong. And then as the years have gone by and we raised our own kids and now our grandkids, priorities, and they were very good priorities, came into view, requiring that we spend a lot of effort to our core subjects in order to get our kids really reading and writing and reasoning and understanding math concepts and understanding all of those core issues. And in doing that, because we couldn't do everything, we had to make some cuts. So in certain states, they completely eliminated any arts experiences. In California, where my granddaughters live right now, any arts experiences are provided by the parents in the PTA, through the PTA. And I'll tell you, they're very, very much involved, and so they're doing the arts probably a lot more than we are here in the state of Utah, because the parents are just totally involved and engaged and making it happen. But as we lost in many of our school districts across the state of Utah, arts educators, even though in many cases they were handling 100 kids or 80 kids in an orchestra or in a big choir in one classroom. So it wasn't a matter of large class size. We could thrive with a large class size in many of these arts experiences. We had to cut back. And to find a solution, many years ago, Beverly Taylor Sorensen suggested that we really ought to integrate the arts experiences in support of core academic subjects. This is, I don't know if you realize, is unique in all the world, and certainly in the United States. So instead of arts for art's sake, because we just believe in music and we believe in visual arts and we believe in theater and we believe in dance and we believe in digital arts or media arts, instead of just being all about art, even though we know that there could be a big, wonderful case, a big, beautiful case for the arts for art's sake, we realized we just couldn't do that. So we have integrated and integrated and integrated, and the studies are showing that that integration is paying off. And if we're in the field of trying to get the kids motivated to come to school, one of the great motivators is I'm a part of the marching band. I'm a part of this. I'm a part of a group of people who love me and think I'm good and I'm having great experiences. So I would just love for us to consider what a unique gem we have. And I know people are sick of hearing about it. And I know there are legislators that say, just go away. We don't want to talk about this. I can't go away, because it's too important. And we're just asking for those 21 schools that are on the waiting list, wanting to have that integrated arts experience that's in support of science, of literacy, of math, of all of the other core subjects. We're not teaching art for art's sake. We are only integrating arts to strengthen other academic core subjects. So I would be so grateful if you would consider becoming an ambassador for integrated arts experiences in the state of Utah. And I would love for you to get excited about the fact that we are supporting students in their efforts to become scholars in all of the important areas that we are focusing on as part of our strategic plan. And I would love to be moving. I don't know how in the world, how could we have sunk so far? How could we have become so removed from reality that we would move that down to number 10? But I guess I just have to accept the fact that the vision is not shared completely. And so I just wanted to help share the vision a little bit more today. Hate me if you will, but just know that I love music. I love dance. I love theater. I love the visual arts. I love the media arts. And our kids need them. Thank you for listening. Bye.
There's no, yeah, Member Booth, you spoke to a motion that was never
Okay.
made.
Well, guess what? We're going to be funding the core subjects, math, literacy. there's no question those are going to happen way before we get any arts integration in all the schools of the state of Utah. So I would love it if we'd move it right up to number 3. Thank you very much.
Do you want to?
I forgot. I move that we
Okay.
move, and you're going to vote me down, fine, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I move that we move BTS right up to number 3 spot, and I would bring you cookies next time, and I'll sing you a song, a little tap dance on the table, whatever it takes. Let's do it. Okay. Thank you very much for your consideration. That's my motion.
So we have a motion that the board move the Beverly Taylor Sorensen funding request to number 3. Do we have a second? Yes. We have a second. Member Booth, do I dare ask for you to speak to that? Okay. I know. No, that was great. Okay, so I've got Member Bogus light and Member Green light. Is this to the motion? Yes. Okay, Member Bogus, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I would like to speak in support of this motion. I know there's so many things on the thing, but as we talk about attendance, what people so often forget is what kids come to school for is often not math. And I shared stories about how students just don't miss my class. They will actually schedule their doctor's appointments during somebody else's class because they know that they like to be there and they don't want to miss it because they miss content. This is what will get kids to school. It's what will keep them in school, and it is a tangible thing that will increase attendance, especially in your elementary schools where this is the most effectuated. So I would just ask for you to vote in favor of this. I know we go through a lot of ups and downs as we work through the legislative session, but I would just ask for you to support Member Booth in his motion. I think it's a good one, and I think it's where we get some of the best bang for our buck. Thank you.
Member Green.
Well, I was glad that that beautiful speech was followed up by the motion. So well done. And I am supporting this motion. I was hoping it would be in the top 5 at least. And just, the age, personal experience, my kids are, from 20 down to 8. And I've seen the shift in education. I've lived it. And when I have a bin this big for my first, and I barely have a container for my last, it's really sad. And I understand that there are so many things that come for teacher, like the teachers have to address. So it's almost like they're looking for a reason to be able to do art in kindergarten and first and second grade, which it's kind of sad. And I don't know what to do about it other than if this exists and they can incorporate it, then I support it. And I just love, I love to see what we're surrounded with every month. I think it's inspiring. I think it reminds us. So anyway, I'll keep it short, but thank you.
The motion before the board is that the board move the Beverly Taylor Sorensen funding request to number 3. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Davis?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. Okay, that passes. 11 in favor, 4 opposed. Those in opposition being Member Hymas, Member Brenton, Member Kelly, and Member Carey. And no, we're not monsters who hate art. Lisa, I'm sorry. Start with Joe, will you? And then I'll decide if I want to do it. Okay. So let's readjust here. It looks like here's our new ranking. We've got WPU at number 1, paraprofessional K through 3 grant program at number 2, BTS at number 3, K-8 literacy, numeracy at number 4. And then we could, if we just shrink that so we can just look at columns A and B, just give a better view for board members. And while that's happening, we'll go to Member Earl.
So I just do we have to prioritize our staff the way it's written here? Can those just be combined into one and then it's USBE staff and then broken out according to what they the request is? No? Yes? I would like to make a motion that the USB staff, someone tell me if, well, I guess we'll argue it in a minute, right? That the staff items be combined into one. I think, I don't know about fourth, but it definitely like a fifth place, that they need to be up in that top end. Yeah, okay.
No. I'm asking for clarity as you formulate this motion. Are you talking, you said staff items, are you referring to
like,
FTEs?
Yeah, the full-time FTE items. Unless there's someone there's any of those people don't want to put up that high. So it's not these little bitty things. It's like, here's the key staff things. There, that's it. Okay.
Well, look at the screen. Let's
I'm
make
gonna
sure
look at
we
the
got
screen
it.
and put my glasses on. Yeah. Yep.
So the motion is that the critical FTE funding requests be combined into one funding request. Do we have a second? And would you like to speak to that, Member Earl?
Yeah, and I would actually ask that it be put into fifth place. Yep.
And be prioritized or put in
Yeah, fifth place.
prioritized as number 5 or whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Is this your motion, Member Earl?
Let me clarify.
Get those glasses on.
Requests be combined into. Yes.
Okay.
That would be the motion.
So the motion is, let me restate, that the critical FTE funding requests be combined into one funding request and be prioritized at number 5. And we're not asking for, just for clarity, critical USBE critical FTE funding requests, or we don't. I guess we don't have any others, so it's there. But I just want to make sure when we speak to the legislature we get this right. So do we have a second on this motion? We've got a second from Sarah, even with the prioritization, Sarah, at number 5. Okay, Member Earl.
Yep. I just think I think having a whole bunch of different funding requests for staff looks different. If we don't want to even include any of those funding requests, I think we can take those off. But I think combining those in one and saying we have these needs, and then those could be broken out when it's presented as to what those needs are. So it's combining internal audit and UPAC. So it'd be internal audit, UPAC compliance, data compliance, financial monitoring, and first credential.
Okay, I've got Member Bogus and then Vice Chair Wood. You want to provide some clarity to the?
So there is the aspect of, I believe you changed your bylaws to where all of the employees' internal audit report directly to you. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So here's. Well, we are saying USBE critical needs, right? But then, most of the positions would report to positions that report to the superintendent. So I don't know if you want to break, that's fine. I mean, you could probably do it that way. You might want to see what Chief Audit Executive Davis says, right? But, the other thing too is so we've done this both ways in the past. So this is just kind of history here, right? When we've combined FTEs together, we inevitably get the question of, well, we're not going to fund all of them. So what is your priority of funding by FTE, right? So that's kind of why the way we were going. There's no right or wrong answer here. You can do that, but just know that, combining them has certain risks. When you separate them though, then you also have that where, people hone in on and say, well, they do need more internal audit and they don't need, this. So, it's either or, there's some stuff that goes on, but I would really, I think it's a value add and time. I know it's time sensitive if you'd hear from Chief Audit Executive on what she would prefer as far as the request goes. Is she in here? Because I'm totally using the force here. So, yeah, okay.
CAE Davis, please.
All right, so Chief Audit Executive, Debbie Davis. I think Deputy Superintendent Jones outlined it very well. Usually when we request FTEs, we don't get them all. And then the question is, who decides what the priority is. So however that's outlined, I think it is important to designate. I think we've said it's clarity is kindness, right? So to know exactly what we're asking the legislature to fund, I think that's helpful as well. But I do think the board will be advocating for these positions. So I would say what the board wants to do in that advocacy, that's the direction you should go in being specific about the positions.
Okay. I've got Member Bogus, Member Carey, then Member Bogus, Vice Chair Wood, Member Carey, Member Earl. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I would just speak against the motion. I think the general, we'll call it a vibe, for lack of a better word, from the legislature is they don't want to fund any of this. And if we combine them all into one, we will lose them all. And that's just the general, what's the word I want to use, message I'm getting from our legislative partners. So I think we need to keep them separate. I think we need to be very clear and articulate what we want, why we want it, and what it's going to be used for, and let that come in. I do think that there is an interest in funding audit and UPAC. I think there's going to be more aversion to some of our other funding requests, but keeping those separate, I think, increases our chances of seeing the finish line to those two sections of the USBE in particular. So I would just speak against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wood.
Superintendent Jones, do you know how much our one-time fund or our ongoing funding that we were approved for last year was?
Chair, it was approximately 260 million, I think 250 something, but I'll double check.
And does that include the WPU then?
Yeah, well, so if you recall, last year they did only fund the 4% discretionary funds, but then there was some other legally required additions that made it creep up in that 250 range. I don't have the exact number in me. I can get it real quick though.
No,
problem.
it's fine. I'm
Okay.
just wondering if we're looking at, our priority is the WPU, and then this is 17 requests, right? 17
Right, and that would be
FTEs,
all ongoing.
and it is under my about 3.5 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Member Earl.
Board Member Carey's first. Is there anything that prohibits us from actually putting staff in these critical FTEs and actually prioritizing them when they're presented, saying these are the priorities?
So that actually goes into what you saw Board Member Carey approach, because if you remember, and I'll let him speak to this as well, but if you remember, he made a motion to combine all of these FTEs and have leadership work it out. And we have met with the superintendency, but Member Carey, is there more to add to that?
No, Chair. And again, I know Vice Chair Bollinger is looking for the actual motion, but I thought it was last month we went through this and said, let's combine this into one ask and give leadership and the superintendent the operational flexibility as they negotiate to say, this is where we want to be. So when I saw this break them out individually, it seems to be the exact opposite of what the motion was intended to do. So I raised that concern, and I know they're looking for the motion and the result, but thank you.
I think the reason why is it actually puts less, and I can see the argument, so I appreciate the feedback, and it's always a dance or a game, right? I mean, there's always that dance when we get up there. But I do think if we only had 6, right, over all things, and then when we have the staff, we can break it down on the priority there. I think there's a different view to that than asking for 12, right? So it's just visually, I'm just thinking.
There is. Let me just report on how we approach this, Vice Chair Wood and I, with the Lieutenant Governor, because we actually acted more in accordance with or in accordance with what Member Carey had mentioned, right? We went in there and we talked about the need for FTEs and we talked about various areas. Now we did, if I remember correctly, we gave a number. We wanted 17 total, but we didn't go specifically into how many per area. We just said We did talk about areas of need, though. Did we break them apart? Tell me, there was, because there was more than just UPAC. We did talk about, it wasn't, maybe it was accountability, but Vice Chair Wood, bring back that conversation that we had.
They basically had a list that had been provided to them that they were broken out, and we had some Chair Davis from Finance Committee helped to kind of fix those numbers because not all of them were accurate to what we had met and determined the priorities at. I thought the motion came at that there were very specific, that we had to have 5 of one, and like there were very specific numbers, but then the rest could be based on need. But Chair Hymas was very strong in his presentation to the Lieutenant Governor regarding our FTE needs.
Okay. So we have some sauntering happening. Yeah. Okay. We'll just give us 30 seconds here. Well, we're just getting clarity. I mean, it's not like it's a secret. If I'm honest, Member Carey was asking what the vote was last time, and so Member Bollinger pulled it up, right? So, I mean, it's not like we're having breakthrough conversations, just wondering what was going on. So the motion then that Member Earl has put before us is that the critical FTE funding requests be combined into one funding request and be prioritized at number 5. If I'm understanding correctly, the board leadership will still move in the direction that was voted on last time of saying, yes, there's a total amount. But as part of that, the UPAC was requesting a specific amount. Internal audit was requesting a specific amount. And we'll push for those, but there's flexibility based on the need for those additional FTEs. So I don't think that Member Earl's, to try to go back, I don't think that Member Earl's motion disrupts what we voted on in the previous month. So with that over the top, unclear explanation, I think we're ready to vote. So let's get that queued up. Kelsey? Got it. Perfect. Member Davis?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. Okay, that passes 11 in favor, 4 opposed. Those in opposition being Member Brinton, Member Green, Member Wood, and Member Bogus. Okay.